So we talk a lot about technology today. Okay, a lot of things that are exciting, new. And I'll tell you, I've been a technology leader for probably longer than I care to remember. And one of the things that people really concentrate on is the technology and staying sharp, which is absolutely necessary. But one of the things that is equally as important is the communication aspect of it. So I'm a person who always likes to be right. And I'm a person who always likes to convince others that I'm right. So I did a real deep dive into some of these science of persuasion and influence, and I found that it's a lot easier than you think. And when you talk about just coming off of a 2-year pandemic, all of us felt kind of out of control, maybe a little bit powerless. Now we're just getting our juices back. So the actual truth is, with some of these tools you can use, you have more power than you think. And we're going to talk a little bit about the notion of power, especially in the post-pandemic world, and how, you know what, whether you just started out from college or whether you've been in the industry for God knows how long, as I have, you'll find out that, you know what, you do have more power than you think. So I got 3 goals today for all of us. 1, I want an aha moment for one of you folks to just say to yourself, oh my God, you're absolutely right. Okay, that happened to me. Or, oh, I can use this, okay? And it's not only for technology. We're going to talk a lot about technology, but you could use this in everyday life, your personal sphere, or any way you want to try to get your idea across. And by the way, if you just want to yell, aha, at any point in time, I'd appreciate it. I'm pretty needy. Then I want to give you at least 1 tool to add to your toolbox, okay? We're going to talk a lot about storytelling and crafting an analogy and actually persuasive rules and the science of persuasion to get people to actually listen to you, okay? And no matter what it is, whether you have an idea, whether you have to have a nasty message, maybe you're going to be late with something, or maybe you need a little more money for your project. We're going to show you how to do that. And this is the most important thing. I've seen more careers just not take off because people didn't communicate as intentionally as they coded, okay? And to be fair, it's like I coded a very small fraction of my time. And since then, I've been working on careers with people. I've been working on what they really need to do to get their ideas across. And we're going to talk a little bit about today how important that is. You're all brilliant coders. Communicate just as intentionally. It's huge. So, why should you care? It's like, I'm doing okay. People like me. No one hates me. Well, I don't want to scare anyone, but the rest of the world is catching up to us in terms of developers, software engineers, coders, integrators, systems analysts, you name it in the IT field, and the rest of the world is catching up. In fact, India is going to pass us in a year or 2, which is fine. I've been to India. They're fantastic people. They're the nicest people in the world. They work really hard. They love to work with American companies, but we want to make sure that we're differentiating ourselves, and we want to make sure that, at least domestically, we have what it takes to actually get a good presence in the US. So we have a little bit of a challenge. How we see ourselves. We work every day. We're working hard, we're collaborating. We're right now cranking out good code, coming up with great ideas. Dawned on me, though, as I started communicating with user groups and other people, I realized something. And it really came into clear focus when I had my house redesigned. This is kind of how our stakeholders see us. It's like we're the plumbers, the electricians, contractors. We're really expensive. We know you need them. Okay, we may not have to like them. It's like it's never on time, and they're talking to me in terms I don't get. And I'm really suspicious of them. And how many people here have had users that question you? It's like, this is easy, okay? So what we have to do is understand that, and that's okay. We can flip the script. Okay, we can become trusted partners. Every IT shop I've ever been at, the one thing they want to talk about, we want to be partners with the business. We want to be partners with our constituents. We want to be partners with our stakeholders. Well, there's a couple easy ways you could do this. And we're going to talk about the 5 types of powers. Raven and French were these French sociologists who came up with 5 types of power. They have a 6th, but I don't buy into it, so I'm just going to ignore that. If anyone knows it, you can shout it out later. But there's only 2 that really matters. So the first power is organizational power. All right, these are powerful people. Now, 2 CEOs, you got a king now. He had what was the world's longest internship? He's now the king. Now, brilliant, perhaps. Regal, certainly. But I just kind of want to hit them sometimes. They just come across so bad. Organizational power, is just power of title. They're the boss. You don't have any control of it. You may love the person, you may hate the person, but they're the boss. It's legitimate power. And what happens with legitimate power? You can reward people. You can give people a pay raise, give them the famous participation medal, you can give them a reward recognition, give them a corner office. Of course, now with an open floor plan, you can get the corner table maybe. But reward power, obviously, that's the best part of being a boss, right? You like someone, you can reward them. Flip side is power to punish. Okay, they can hold back your career, not give you the opportunity, not send you to a conference. I want to go to a conference. No, you can't. Why not? I said so. They can give you the little office in the closet, like Ryan from The Office. Or they can actually just demote you or just pass you up for opportunity after opportunity. They can punish. And that's the one that scares us a little bit, right? We don't want to get on the boss's bad side because this could happen. Well, here's the thing. Those three are the weakest power. What if you have a booming job market in IT, which, coincidentally, we do. Okay, now you're not quite as worried about your job. What if you're not in it for the money? Maybe you're in it for learning. Maybe you're in it because you like the company, the mission. Okay, so the money doesn't really matter to you. Or even, worse, it's okay, well, what are you going to do? Fire me? I'll get another job. Those powers that a lot of old school management uses, or old school leaders, doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's the least. And Raven and Friend said it doesn't matter. What does matter? Power of positive perception. And I know that's a lot of alliteration. I apologize for it. Their actual term is reference, but I hate that word. But it's if you're ethical, if you're likable, you will be in demand. You all work lots of hours, I imagine. You have coworkers you love to work with, making sure at every meeting you're sitting next to them. Maybe they're a little subversive. Whatever it is you like about them, you can trust them. They got your back. You're commiserating about the same thing. You're grabbing a couple of adult beverages after work. But you like working with them. You go out of your way to get on projects with them. Sometimes if they leave the company, you even follow them. I can tell you honestly, every company I've switched in my career, I actually followed someone. Someone said, hey, this place is great. I love it. I like them. I went. This is great. The likability is there. And by the way, if your stakeholders like you, they're going to follow you and they're going to want you. I can't tell you how many times I've had a stakeholder, well, it's time to move Bob or Sue to another project. And you're like, oh, there's no way we're going to die. Well, they're not going to die. No, but they know exactly what I want. I love them. That's power. That's real power. Oops. So what's a fifth? Well, you know what? If you're a likable buffoon, no one really wants you, right? I've known a lot of people very likable, not great coders, or maybe not delivering, or whatever it is. What you want to be is to have also expertise in something. Okay, whatever it is, whatever your field of expertise is, be the best at it. Knowledge is power. And the good news is, you're all here, so you're well underway, right? You're not content to be like, I know everything I need to know. No, you're coming here, and God knows, I spent the last 30 minutes listening to this dude. This guy was so smart. I'm like, oh my God, just what I need, another person to make me feel less smart. I can only imagine after a whole day of this how you guys all feel. So, what's the key? You want both, okay? My wife absolutely hated this picture. She goes, he's creepy. I go, no, it's Einstein. He's an expert and he's fun. He's likable. He's a good dude. They made a romantic comedy about him. So you want to combine that likability and that expertise. So now take a moment and think about any good mentor you had, any great coworker, any your best boss ever. I will guarantee you they had both. The likable buffoon isn't going to move your career anywhere, and the I won't even say the words, but the unlikable expert, same thing, right? We don't want that. Your best bosses have always been that. You achieve that with your stakeholders, they're going to want you. You're going to be highly marketable. You're going to be differentiated. Okay, yeah, there might be 127 million developers in the world, but you're the one that the stakeholder wants. And you know what? In a networked world, you're always going to be in demand. Here, there, anywhere. You're going to be the ones that when they have the talent coordination meetings and all these things that go on in the background, they're going to say, oh man, I absolutely love that person. They're the best, and they're smart. So, why do you need to be liked? I'm in a long time. I don't even know if I'm likable now. But back in the day, I didn't care who liked me. When I started my career, I was a manager at an early age and probably a real, you know what. But why do you need to be liked? Well, Zoe Chance wrote a great book, and she said there's a reason for this. She said everyone is part gator. And what a gator is, you have to literally throw a raw chicken on its nose for it to react and eat the chicken. Okay? He will not move. They live to be like, Lord knows how long, but they're slow, they're instinctive, they're just mean, and they just get you. Reactive, closed-minded, one-dimensional. Your proposal starts here. Anytime you're asking for anything, I need more time on the project. We need a couple more consultants. I need to do this, X, Y, and Z. Generally, the first reaction of anything, anytime you ask someone is like, no, why are you coming here? Why are you bothering me? No, I gave you enough money. You said you could do it in like 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks. They're the gator. They're instinctual. They're reacting. You're never going to get your idea across that way. What you want is for them to become the judge. The judge is objective. They're a responder. They're open-minded. They're weighing your arguments. Okay, any of you have ever had a fight with a significant other, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister, sibling, and they're just like, yeah, I'm not listening to you, you're an idiot. Okay, they're gatoring. They're gatoring all over you. Okay, you've got to get past that. Okay, how though? That's where those two powers come in. You want to get to that judge. And the only way to do that is to have positive perception or expertise. They got to like you and think you're smart. Okay, that's the key. So that's why we need to be liked. When we're asking or persuading anyone, influencing anyone, talking to a stakeholder, talking to each other, this is what we need. They need to respect you, and they need to like you. Now, that's a lot easier said than done, okay? I hate the mornings. No one hates mornings more than I do. I should be glad every morning I wake up, as my wife, reminds me. But I will tell you, I absolutely hate the morning. But you know what? When I come into the office, I say hi to everyone. I don't want to say hi to anyone. I'll be honest with you. I'm like, ugh, leave me alone. Give me some coffee, 10 o'clock. Say hi to everyone. And the people who don't say hi back, I'm like, what's your problem? If I can do it, you can do it. Little things. Just be a decent person. Not that hard. It's the easiest thing in the world. Just out of college, the easiest thing in the world to be eager, to be nice to people. So, 3 tools to increase your positive perception and your expert ability. You know and I know if we start talking about technology and why something's difficult or where we ran into problems, how many people have ever seen that like glazed look in their eyes and say, oh, you're just making these words up. There's no such thing as this stuff. Come on, MuleSoft, really? Who names something MuleSoft? Okay, it's like, no, you've got to get to them. So there's 3 good ways to do it. Create an analogy. Very simple. There's actually literally a website that'll create it for you. Tell a story. Make it understandable. Okay, when I was redoing my house, they would tell me why I had to give them another $6,000, $7,000. I'm like glazing over. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, look at it this way. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand it. And then we're going to talk about persuasion, and there's like some key tools you can use, and they're very, very easy. So let's talk about an analogy. It makes the unfamiliar familiar. That's when you're comparing something that they may not understand to something they clearly understand. It reduces the fear of the unknown. Nobody likes to look stupid, so people are probably not admitting they're not following you. They'll say, oh, yeah, that sounds right. Or they'll say, no, you're just making this up. Okay, you want to make sure that it's very relatable. And here's the key. When a stakeholder can speak somewhat of our language, they're going to show it off. They absolutely will. I've seen it. I've seen my stories repeated by other users saying, well, yeah, it's because of this. And that's good. It reduces the fear of the unknown. It enhances trust. I need the plumber, I need the electrician, I need the contractor, they need engineers. They don't always trust us. Why do you guys cost so much? It's going to take longer. What do you mean? So expertise is really the ability to convey information. And I stress this anytime I talk to an intern, a new grad, or even someone who's having a hard time getting their ideas across. If you can convey information in an understandable manner, they're going to want you on every project ever. Okay, and it's better to be in demand than not in demand, believe me. So what does it do? It gives you a relatability. Okay, I understand you. Likability, understanding, partnership, collaboration, respect. Okay, here in your company and other companies. How many people would like an easier path to get that extra week or 2 that we need before delivery, or to get another tool, or to try an experimentation, or to use one of these technologies you heard about this year, or today rather. You want that. And so by doing that trust, show them why. So when you craft an analogy, this is actually intentional. Remember, all communication is intentional. Don't happen upon it. Know your technology. First of all, if you can't explain it, you probably have a problem. Okay, so make sure you explain it and understand what you're asking them for. Determine a comparison. Just like when you go home, my kids are annoying. I come home and they say, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I solve problems. That's the only thing I can come up with. And now one actually works in the company. So now he's actually going to what kind of problems exactly? You keep saying these problems, they don't seem to have any problems. I go, I got problems, kid, don't worry about it. Keep it simple, but not condescending. Okay, it's like, don't talk slower, don't draw a picture unless it's really a cool diagram that they'll understand. Make sure that it's simple. And then put it together. So I used an example once from ages ago. No one here is a lawyer, right? Awesome. Okay, lawyers are like some of the worst users of technology of all time. So I was supporting a law office, and I had to tell them it's about time they do their database reorg. And the lawyer's just looking at me like, okay, there's no such thing. What are you talking about? Absolutely not a thing. I'm trying to explain to them fragmentation. I'm like, look, if you don't do this as well, it's going to happen. It's got to be contiguous blocks. You want to do all of this, etc. Nah, they weren't buying it. They're lawyers. All they thought was, we generate billable hours. You're trying to do the same thing, which not necessarily untrue, but in this case, they really did need it. So I said, you know what? If I came into your office, if you walked in and you had to pull up a file really quick for a court case at noon, and all your files were like the first picture, none in any order, none with tabs, none with anything, would you be able to find it? Well, no, it would take hours. You'd have to go every one. Aha, there you go. Okay, right now, that's what your database looks like. What we're doing with this database reorg is putting everything back in order. And that person was so proud. They were talking about it in the office. They're really sad, kind of, actually, because I didn't really think it was all that deep. But they're like, oh, yeah, we got to do this because, imagine your file cabinet was messed up. This cleans up the file cabinet. And he was instant, IT hero in the office. So, one of the things you can do, though, sidewaysdictionary.com literally is a dictionary of IT analogies to explain things. I was going through it because I'm like, this is great. I go, there was one for API. Someone said, oh, API, you know how your TV and you plug in all those different devices in the back of the TV? Oh, that's an API. Those are the endpoints. I'm like, these guys are great. I go, this is fantastic. So keep in mind, get an analogy. Sideways Dictionary is hysterical. Just it's a blast. So I'm going to tell you a little story, a true story. The good news is I talk a lot about these things because I made every possible mistake known to a leader to make. Somehow, I've never gotten fired yet, pending the outcome of this video being viewed by my bosses. Years ago, 1998 in fact, I tore my ACL playing basketball, backyard basketball. I ran into a teenager, so it wasn't nearly as cool as it sounds. But I had to have surgery. Just so happens at the time, my boss, he was dealing with a family crisis. Family, actually quite tragic. So I'm there like, you know what, I'm going to time this. I'm going to take off Thursday of, just before Thanksgiving. I'm going to get my surgery. I'm going to be back in the office Monday. So I'm like, you know what, I got to be there. I got to do it. So I had my surgery, knees all swollen up, terrible. I go in, sitting in the office, talking to someone, knee propped up, ice bag on. It was really, now that I think about it, quite unprofessional. But I was doing that. Knock on the door, here comes my CIO. My CIO was this big New York dude. I'm not going to mention his name because he'll probably sue me for copyright. But he comes in and he goes, how'd the surgery go? And he always called me kid. He was 10 years older than me, but he always called me kid. He goes, kid, how did the surgery go? And I'm like, oh, wow. You let me see your knee. Roll it up. I roll it up. He puts his glasses down, looks. And I'm like, hey, but what a hero. Here I am. 4 days later, I got your back. He looks at me and goes, I think you're a flippin' moron. And he didn't use the term flippin'. He goes, I think you're a flippin' moron. You told every person that works for you out there that you don't trust them enough to not come into work when you just had surgery 4 days ago. He goes, how do you think they feel about what you did? You don't think they're talking right now? It's like, who the hell does he think he is? He couldn't take off 3 days because he had surgery? And I'm there like, wow, I was pretty deflated. So that story taught me one thing. Trust your people. And it's a story I tell to every leader I develop. Tell that same story. I go, you're going to think that you're the only one to do this, or you're the only one that possibly can pull this off. You're not. Trust your people. Now, why did I tell a story rather than just say, you should trust your people? Well, there's a reason for it. With storytelling, they're 22 times more likely to be remembered than data. 22 times. This is clinical research. I've read it, so you don't have to. Very thick, very dense clinical research. People respond to stories. And they can be any kind of story you want. They could be stories about your experience. They could be stories of what's going to happen if you don't do it. Cautionary tales are stories. They can say the great future you have if you do it. All of these things. They enliven the past, present, and future. Now, I have seen people, believe me, they increase your likability and expertise that make you human. Your IT, you have a skill set they don't have. You have a skill set that sometimes confuses them, okay? Heck, I talk to some of you folks and I'm like, okay, I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm Googling all the acronyms and yeah, my staff all knows it. They're like, yeah, he does that all the time, guy's an idiot. It increases your likability and expertise. But keep your stories relevant, personal, and authentic. I had a person, I knew them, and they would come up with a story, and it would be so esoteric and philosophical, I had no idea what they were talking about. I didn't see the relevance. I'm like, okay, great. What does that mean exactly? Keep them relevant, personal, and authentic. And here's kind of the secret, right? Always have the story ready. So if whatever project you're working on that's hot, your main focus right now, have an elevator speech ready. You're going to walk in an elevator, maybe a stakeholder, maybe an upper management person is going to ask you about the project. Have it ready. My wife's like the nicest human being alive, and so she gets stuck with a lot of things because you know how to say no. So I taught her, always have your lie ready. I go, just have a lie ready. So, no, we gotta go to the stamp convention with, Wyatt. Whatever it is, have a lie ready. Always have your story ready, okay? I don't advocate lying, obviously, unless it's the family members, then it's clearly okay. Have it ready. Get in that elevator, you're ready. CIO, CEO, it doesn't matter, they're ready. So, now we're going to talk about influence. I love Robert Cialdini. Absolutely read his work. Persuasion, Persuasion. Everyone wondered, how can you get people to confess the crimes they didn't commit? He writes a book about it. He lays it out, how people do that. Cialdini has 6 principles of influence. Principle 1 is the easiest one. It's called reciprocity. One good turn deserves another, okay? We work untold hours. How many people have spent nights in support and weekends? All of us have gone through that life. Reciprocity. People remember when you do something nice for them, and they will return it in kind. Gratitude, in fact, creates a brain pattern that they can literally measure when someone feels obligated to someone. So what does that mean? What's a key takeaway of this? Accept thanks graciously, but don't dismiss. Okay, so for example, if someone says to me, wow, Randy, that was great. That solution you came up with was fantastic. And I'll say, it was nothing. They're going to say, oh, okay, I guess it wasn't anything. No, don't be bragging about it. Yeah, it was the greatest solution of all time. No, just say thanks. I'm glad we could help. Glad we could help. Plant that seed. Okay, later on, they're going to know that you did something for them, and they're going to do something for you. Up all night? Don't say, I was up anyway. No. Say, you know what, glad to do it. Be gracious. What that'll do is cement that folks like you, okay? Likability is not, really, really here, but it's huge. Likability is huge. Principle 2, this is a little tough. Appeal to someone's self-image. What does this mean? So, I think it was Mountain Dew. It was some soda company tried out a new flavor of soda. And they stood on the corner, like many people do in Chicago, and say, hey, you want to try this? People said, no, I don't want to try this. Get out of here, you freak. I'll give you soda. Until they did one thing. They changed. Cialdini came in and said, hey, you know what? Before you do that, ask them, do you think of yourself as adventurous? And then generally people say, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm adventurous. Then they say, okay, well then why don't you try the soda? 70% more people tried the soda after that. Why? Because I committed to being adventurous. And they're going, oh, you're adventurous? You can't even try soda? So appeal to someone's self-interest. So when you're trying to propose something in IT, start out with something, I know how important security is to you, comma. What's he going to say? It's not? Okay, what are they going to say? They're going to say, oh, yeah, it is. That sets the stage. I had another person did the exact opposite. They started out the sentence with, I know you're going to be mad about this, but awesome. So now I can expect whatever you're saying after that, I'm going to be mad about. And usually they were right. This is a better setup. Oh, well, I know you care about the financials. Well, I know you care about getting this on time. I know you care about, us experimenting. Okay, tell them how they feel. And they're not going to exactly say no, right? Avoid appearance of unwarranted flattery. I know you're the greatest mind this company has ever seen. So no one's buying that. Okay, don't flatter. Don't get labeled with, butt kisser, etc. Give it like a legitimate shot. Principle 3, social proof. People will follow the lead of others. Okay, well, we don't want to be the last to adopt blockchain. Do you? Well, no, they're not going to confess to that. No, I want to be the last. No one's going to want that. Social proof. Build your case. So, well, you don't want to like lose me to someone else, do you? Well, no. Well, of course not. Okay, build that social proof. We don't want to be the last to adopt blockchain. We don't want to be the last to adopt ABC that you learned here today. Works best when no firm decision was made. If someone is absolutely convinced, well, we don't want to miss a month on our delivery date, do we? Well, maybe they're ready to. I figure we miss a month. Didn't work. So make sure it works best when there's no firm decisions already been made. 4, authority. People follow the lead of experts, and this is important. Well, I consulted with the architects, and every software engineer in the world, you get the architects on board, it's a lot easier, right? Well, I talked to this guy, he said it's okay. I talked to her, and she said, we got to do it this way. Consult, authority. Now, here's the key. Ideally, you become that authority. Now we're going to harken back to, remember, the expert ability. They trust you. You haven't lied to them. You came through for them. Now it starts to piece together. It's like, then you start your sentence with, hey, take it from me. This is the only way we can do it. Now you win. Okay, now you're getting the influence. Now you're getting the persuasion. That's why it's so important to just build up that capital, both in terms of expert and likability. This is an easy one. We tend to listen to people more than we like. Okay, well, you don't really listen to people you don't like, do you? You probably avoid them. Run through the halls if you see them. Make a sharp turn and get out of there. We listen to people that we like. The other thing too is similarity. We also tend to listen to people more who are like us. A little dangerous there, obviously, but we tend to actually listen closer to people we like. Oh, what a concept. That's the likability, as we recall. Best when combined with expert authority. Just because they like you doesn't mean they're going to give you $1 million for your project. Okay, you've got to convince them. Okay, people throw money around like manhole covers these days. You like people, they will listen to you. This is my favorite, scarcity, fear of missing out. Okay, you are manipulated by this all the time. Act now. Okay, this coupon expires in 3 days. You're going to miss out if you don't use it. I'm a sucker for Kohl's coupons, 30% off. I don't even need anything. I'm just going to go there because I want the 30% off to expire. Okay, so you could do the same thing. That's how you could persuade. We only have a limited time to act on this. If we miss the boat on this, it's going to be a lot more expensive. Or, if we don't do this now, we're going to have to do this later. Technical debt. Everyone here dealing with technical debt? If we don't take the time now, we're going to have to do it later. Okay, you know and I know, we all know, the earlier you can do something, the cheaper it ultimately becomes. Works best when there's limited time, quantity, or opportunity. Okay, that's key. If you have unlimited time, unlimited money, well, okay, there's no urgency, right? But how many of us have that? The answer is probably no one. So make sure, with fear of missing out, you don't want to be the last one. It's very related to we don't want to be the last one to do blockchain, right? Right, fear of missing out. So, here's your 3-step program. Step 1, expert power. You guys are here now, okay? That's a marathon. You went to several sessions. It's a marathon. It's a marathon of brain power. You're already actually working on your expertise. Positive perception. You can insert whatever swear word you want in there. Okay, it's very easy. Don't be a blank. Insert whatever you want. And then step 3, communicate intentionally with analogies, stories, and use Cialdini's principle of influence. Here's the thing. It becomes second nature. Okay, for those of you who might have seen the Matrix, years ago, he gets very successful, and all of a sudden he sees the source code, right? Everything now appears like source code. When you do this enough, it becomes second nature. You will absolutely identify it. And more importantly, you'll be able to see when it's being done to you. And this is an important part of Cialdini. He's much more pessimistic than Zoe Chance was. He was like, hey, all of these things that are happening, they're happening because you're falling for these tools of influence. So if you learn these principles, you can also defend against them. So for example, I know everyone here, people get return address labels in the mail from charities. Every time. When I was younger, they just asked for money. Never gave it. They found that, again, when they gave you something, you felt obliged to actually give back. And it's amazing. Back in the day, and I've seen it actually come back a little bit, they used to give you like a dime or a nickel. It's like, oh, here's something you like, and then we give dollars back. It's really bizarre. Remember, the brain responds to gratitude, and it responds to getting something, and it feels like it has to reciprocate. Otherwise, it's kind of an out-of-balance situation, right? They did something for me, I had to do something for them. But once you know that, you know you're being manipulated. So this is the thing. Learn those tools of persuasion and influence, and then learn how to guard against them, because they're going to be used to you too. You know, by leaders, by everyone else. Apology to all leaders who use these. Okay, flattery is going to get you to know, oh, you're the absolute most important person in this department, clearly, but I can't let you go on that project. Or you're way too valuable to go to that project. Well, now you know what's going on, right? They're trying to appeal to your sense of self, so challenge that. So use them where you need to, guard against them where you don't. Cialdini is really good, Zoe Chance is really good. Read those books, they're awesome. So, questions, comments, concerns? Did anyone have an aha moment? Oh, you guys, come on, I know you did. Any tools you can use? Wow. Ah, there you go, thank you. I like that guy. Questions, concerns? Yes, you in the front. Steve.
I've experienced this with other really smart engineers. So you're at a company a long time, and there's change, and then you may not agree with that change, and then behind the scenes you're like not wanting that change to go through, so you're making it hard for the change while you're looking for another job, and then they leave everyone else with tech debt. Don't be that person. You spend your whole career being liked, you gain the trust, and then you stifle progression, and then you leave, and then you tarnish your reputation.
Well, you bring up a couple good points. Change. Change is a whole different presentation, right? People don't always like change. If we feel comfortable with the way things are, we're not apt to change them. We exist in the here. We like what the here is. There's always the people coming back, now we're going to have the there. We're going to the next thing. But you know what? I don't want to change. I don't agree with the change. I don't like the change. So what happens? You throw stones at it. You throw rocks. You come up with reasons. You might even leave. It's like now you're no longer a good citizen, right? Here's the thing. When you're talking about change that people not buy off on, it's like anything else with influence or persuasion. People act in their own self-interest. And that's not a bad thing. It sounds really selfish, right? People act in their own self-interest. If we didn't, the first saber-toothed tiger would have come along, we would have tried to pet it, and we would have been killed. Okay, of course we act in our own self-interest. So what you have to do is appeal to that self-interest. So if the person doesn't believe in the change, convey it in how it's going to benefit them. Okay, and corporations do this not great on occasion. They'll tell you all these lofty things and all these great things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and never realize, well, what does it mean to me? Okay, you're changing. Why is this happening to me? People are very, very egocentric. So in that case, what you want to do is make sure they're comfortable with the change and how it's going to benefit them. And if you can't benefit them, at least tell them to give it a try. We're resilient people. We do change over time. But yeah, especially in IT where things change literally overnight. Okay, what is the 3-month half-life of software development, we got to be used to change. So it's just conveying it in a very positive light. And don't leave tech debt. That's just a bad IT citizen. Come on now. We're better than that. Sir.
Thanks. So you talked about the importance of both being an expert in your own domain as well as being likable. Mm-hmm. And I think within tech, there's a lot of tools for like measuring your own competency and measuring your own skill and proficiency in tech. But as it relates to being likable and how positive of a person you are in your community, how do you self-assess and how do you measure where you are in that area?
Right. I am the most special person in the world because my mom told me so. It is hard. It is hard. You can do that. You can do 360s. You can ask your boss, or maybe even HR has a system where you can do an anonymous 360. People are a lot better with anonymity, right? Go through 360. Here's the thing, though. Here's the responsibility in us. When you get something you don't like to hear, you got to accept it because someone feels that way. Perception is reality. I met a new CIO. He came in and he was like a change agent, and he brought all of the heads of the departments together, and everyone said about his message and his vision for the department, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked him a simple question. I go, you're going to talk to all these people. How do you know which ones are full of crap? And how do you know which ones are telling the truth? He doesn't know whether they're likable or not. Doesn't have anything to do with it. Told me a simple thing. He goes, that's easy. You're all full of crap. And you're all right. Because you believe this. So it can't possibly be you. It's happening to you. Or this other person doesn't understand what you're going through. So how do you assess that? Simple things. I'm not a feel-good, super positive guy. Go to lunch with someone new. Have coffee with someone you don't know. Okay, go out, get them in a social event. Get to know people. Remember, once we know you, once you build up that likability, that positive perception, things are a lot easier. I look back, I don't know if anyone has the benefit of tenure as I do in life, but when you look back, you're like, oh my, geez, I was just an awful person back then. You learn along the way. Ask someone for real feedback. Ask your boss for real feedback. If they give you some nonsense about, oh yeah, the typical, oh, you're really good, all this, etc. You can't be possibly as good as the person's telling you. Really ask them, but be ready to take it. What's the biggest lie in English language? Any sentence that starts with, don't take this personally, but you just know what's going to happen. It's like, what do you mean my hair's bad? You got to be ready to accept the feedback and just ask people. Ask people you don't know. Or ask people, what's your perception of me? I'm super transparent with that. It's like, ask yourself why I never talked to you. I don't know. It's like, maybe there's just nothing in common. But get to know, break down those walls, and you'll see that you might actually like people more than you think. That's another thing. Questions? Comments? Concerns? Here we go.
Yeah, being in consulting, I go into a lot of places where if I start to act smart and earn the respect of the boss, there's usually somebody inside who had that respect, who gets very upset that I'm taking his spotlight. What's the best way to deal with them?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. New kid in town, new kid on the block, whatever you want to talk about that. Again, the person is feels threatened, feels maybe a little bit hurt that you're here. Why are you here? How many people have seen a contractor come in or a consultant be brought in to just ratify something you told them? Okay, you can imagine. So I have a saying, empathy, not sympathy. So rather than feel bad for the person, I'm sorry that I brought you in here, think about how they're feeling and tell it what's in it for them. At the end of the day, what is in it for them? So if you're coming and ratifying their decision, okay, you're right. And being a consultant especially, you're not going to shine in that company. You're there and then you leave. Let that other person shine. There's kind of I was talking about in terms of the sun and the moon. Okay, the sun is this big, bright, burning orb in the sky. It says, look at me, I'm the sun. The moon is just reflected light. In the consulting field especially, you want to be the moon. You come in, you do the work, you're going to get reflected, let the person who's threatened get the glory. For whatever it's worth. I mean, everyone knows, it's still wow, you know what? This person really did a great job. be the moon. Let someone else be the sun. And that's really hard too, because we all have egos. We all want to say, oh, obviously, it's because of me this went through. It's not always the case, especially in consulting. You don't want to be that person. But yeah, definitely, people act in their own self-interest, and it's okay. And then you help them along the way. You're not only going to have a partner probably in that organization, you're going to have a partner who's going to say next time, hey, let's bring in John or Jim or Sue or Mary, whoever it is. Very, very important. Question, I have a laser here. I can just point to people now. This is really cool. Any other questions? Does it help at all? You're going to have your next bad conversation? You're going to look up Cialdini, get those 6 things going, you're going to plot it all out? I can't tell you how many times in the early days I'm like, all right, how am I going to talk to this person? And then come up with something, and it works, okay? These are very powerful tools, and after a while, you just know. And then you're going to build an inventory. Everyone you talk to, especially those that you depend on for financials or architecture or anything else, you're going to start building a little bit of a library on them. What are their interests? What do they like? Are they a techie? Are they a story guy? I work for a numbers guy. If I tell him the story, he's going to say, whatever, shut up, give me the numbers. Although I other know people who are very inspirational. They like stories. Tell me how it's going to be in a year. When is this done? Oh, question there.
Question on how to gauge the right time and patience, like when to approach, when to try.
That is a great question. Yeah, that's tough. I've walked into buzzsaws before. You just throw not the right moment. Try to get a feel, okay? Keep your eye open for things. If you know someone close to them, like, hey, how's Mac doing? How's he feeling today? And you say, you know what, he's been running around, he's got this thing going on, we've been up all night. Okay, that's probably the wrong time, okay? Unless you got the solution to the problem, in which case that's the absolute right time. Yeah, it's tough. All of these things are hard, okay? There's tons of clinical stuff, literally, that if I explained the clinical theories behind all this, it would be more confusing than when I was looking at that technology beforehand. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? You gotta read the room, okay? That's one of the things my one son tells my other son all the time. He goes, read the room. He goes, this is the right time to say this. This is the right time for humor. And people are strange. I gave the same presentation, one in California, one in Seattle. California was probably one of the best presentations I had. Everyone were having a blast. Stayed out all night. They just loved it. Went to Seattle, gave the same presentation. Crickets, man. They were like, yeah, who is this idiot? Get him out of here. You just got to read it and then adjust. And again, it gets easier after a while. It just keeps getting easier. And then you're going to start to see the source code in the matrix. Then you're going to be able to read them like a book. And just throw out a casual comment. If they bite on the small talk, if they seem bothered by small talk, you know. Or you just ask, is this a good time? And they'll say no. Leave me alone. They don't usually say that, but they'll say, maybe later. And just do it that way. And you can do the Friday theory. Oh, we got a question over there. You can do the Friday theory. I only schedule meetings with people I like on Friday because I want to end the week on a high note. Tweak your schedule. Don't get them on a Monday, get them on a Friday. They want to get out of there. Yes?
Yeah, I'm sure many people in this room, like me, are working in the post-COVID work-from-home landscape. What advice would you have for somebody who's looking to make an impact at work, where perhaps scope for face-to-face contact with peers and bosses is quite limited?
Yeah, that is so tough. This is a tough time. And now you throw the whole filter of quiet quitting and all these things on it. I'm part of a hybrid work environment. 3 days is about right for me in the office. But you know what? If you're going to be in the office, maximize in the office. Okay, find that person. Get the FaceTime. FaceTime is huge. Be very cognizant, too, then, of what you're doing virtually. So, I went to Bradley University. I told them, people look first at you, but then they look what's behind you. So be very conscious of what's behind you. What message are you trying to convey? Okay, think of it as your palette. The Zoom screen is your palette. That's your painting. I have things purposely in the background that start conversations 100% of the time. I have Captain America's shield. Okay, I'm a big comic nerd. I got like the Infinity Gauntlet on my lapel. This isn't like any kind of weird political statement, other than Thanos is bad. But yeah, be very conscious. They always say, oh, I see you're a big Captain America fan. Yeah, break the ice. Do that. When you're in the office, maximize being in the office. I've had 2-hour drives the last 3 days, and I don't ever want to go to the office again, to be honest with you. But when I get there, I'm very conscious of what I do. Who have I going to see for a while? Let's go to coffee. Let's go to lunch. Who can I goof around with a little bit? You know, make it that way. And again, if you're starting a career in IT, remote's horrible. I mean, it may be convenient, but you really want that face-to-face. You really want that possible mentoring. You could find some really inspirational people. I learned jack diddly in college, in undergrad, okay? But when I actually got in the real world and people thought enough about me to take time to grow with me, or grow me, I should say, it made a difference. That CIO, that's like one of 100 stories where he just told me I was an idiot all the time. But you know what? I look back and I go, wow, I really was. I can't believe that he actually took that time. It's hard to do over Zoom, okay? Especially if you're gonna blur your background or you're gonna like go off camera. The minute you go off camera, I assume you're goofing around. You know why? Because the minute I go off camera, I'm goofing around. So I can only assume that you guys are doing the same thing I am. So be very intentional with everything you do in communication. Virtual, live, whatever it is. If you're going to the office, meet one new person. Go in the office, touch base with one leader somewhere along the lines. Do something nice for someone. Even if it's like, hey, I'm going down for coffee. You want me to grab you a cup? Stuff like that. Reciprocity, remember? It's like, next time they're going, they'll give you a cup. Be very intentional with all of your actions. It makes a huge difference. Did I answer your question? Thank you. Anything else? Drinks are getting cold, huh? There you go. All right, so if you have any questions or you want to reach out, let me know. I'll send you a list of books that are fun to read, not the clinical stuff that I had to read. The fun stuff is out there. You'll enjoy it, I promise you. And it's going to make you a better communicator and an intentional communicator. Every bit as intentional with your communication as your code. And I guarantee you, you're going to be indispensable. And then you're going to always be in demand. So, thank you.